Hey friends, tonight I'm going to tell you a true crime story. Gently. You settle your phone face down so the screen glow doesn't nick your attention, and you let the room dim into a pool of soft shadow. Outside, a sodium street lamp buzzes like a sleepy cicada. Inside, your fan paddles the air with that steady hush-hush that keeps thoughts drifting but not drowned. On your fingertips, the day is still there. Soap, paper, the faint metal of a door handle, yet the night is asking for something else. Patience, curiosity, and a little courage. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the videos and subscribe, but only if you actually like what I do here. And hey, while we're getting settled, drop your location and what time it is, where you are. I love seeing the map of night ripple across all of you. Now, turn off the lights, turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's start tonight's journey together. You walk, yes, you down a late summer sidewalk in a town that smells like warm asphalt and lawn clippings, a town small enough that everyone waves, but large enough that not every wave is returned. Your shoes scuff chalk ghosts from old hopscotch grids. A feral cat slinks along a fence line like spilled ink. Somewhere, the low thud of a baseline tests the patience of a screen door. You're not here by accident. You are here because of a postcard memory this town keeps sending to itself. A boy with a bicycle that never came home and a cul-de-sac that won't stop listening for the clatter of a kickstand. You haven't met him. Not really. You only know the snapshot everyone knows. A grin too big for the frame. A helmet with scraped stickers, and a shirt that says camp, even when it's not camp season. You pass the grocery and hear the automatic doors breathe out cold, Freon-scented air. You pass the rec center bulletin board with its neon tabs, babysitter, guitar lessons, lost dog, pottery class. Time always has room for pottery, it seems. Then you turn onto Locust Drive, where the houses sit back with their wrists of porch light extended, and you stop at the corner with the view down to the retention pond that locals call the bowl. Your phone vibrates as if trying to remind you of the present, but you're already in it. Deeper than deep. Fireflies as low stars. Sprinklers stitching the grass with silver thread. The taste of humidity like a damp coin on your tongue. You listen to the crickets and think how sound is a kind of present tense map. If the boy's bicycle had squeaked, if the chain had complained, if the reflectors had rattled, someone would have heard. Or maybe they did. Maybe they hear it still. In the clink of a spoon against a glass. In the whir of a box fan, how grief rewires the ordinary. You step off the curb, and the road's tar presses a soft black thumb into your soles. The bowl opens like a mouth. Its water, a flat disc catching the weak moon. A bullfrog, or something with opinions, croaks from the cattails. You think of how ponds eat things without forgetting them. Silt is a scrapbook that pretends to be a floor. Tonight, a breeze whisks a sweet rot smell over the grass that makes you picture fallen apples melting into bees. And because a story like this wants its anchor, here's a small fixed star. In 1998, the FBI rolled out CODIS nationwide, a DNA database that would become a kind of long-armed librarian, filing the unfiled, cross-referencing the forgotten, and sometimes returning books that no one knew were missing. You hold that fact lightly, like a coin warmer than it should be, because it matters later in a way that isn't so much dramatic as persistent. It's not magic, it's a system that waits. A streetlight flickers, and in that flicker, you notice the strange, unnecessary detail that always sticks to truth, like a burr. On the Honey Locust sign, someone has drawn a tiny crown above the L with a silver paint pen. It's the size of a postage stamp, too careful to be teenage. The crown glints each time the light steadies, and you can't help wondering who crowned the locust and why. That's how it goes here. Nothing is just itself. A crown is a crown, but maybe it's also a marker, a memory, or a dare. You breathe, in and out, You're not trespassing. You're attending. The neighbors notice you only in the way a neighborhood notices anything after midnight. A blind twitches. A dog's nails tick, tick, tick on tile. Then the soft reprimand of a human whisper. You sit on the curb with your knees tented and listen for the past to emit a sound. There is the substation's whisper far away, the zipper of a single car on the bypass, and the occasional metallic ping from someone's cooling engine. There's the frog again. You wonder what noise a clue makes while it's still a clue. You touch your pocket, and, without deciding to, you take out a folded photocopy. The kind that fuzzes edges, like the paper itself, is tired. It's the flyer that used to be taped on this very corner, brittle under the sun and then gummy under storms. Missing, it shouted. And below was a phone number that went straight to an answering machine with a greeting no one could bear to change. You run your thumb over the black and white face until the toner blurs into a thumbprint. Even in the copy of a copy, you can see the chipped front tooth, a frontiersman's badge of summer. A sprinkler knocks against a metal stake, tick, 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 and you are a pendulum between then and now. You remember a woman at the grocery years later who insisted the boy had been seen at a gas station in a county 2 over and how she kept touching the ends of her hair like they were beads on a rosary. You remember a man who took up jogging at 47 and ran the same loop past this corner every dawn until his knees failed him, as if speed could outpace the unanswerable. You remember how the town learned to say things softly, how the 4th of July felt wrong for a while because explosions sound like endings. You stand and look at the storm drain by the curb, a black rectangle with grillwork like piano keys. You crouch and smell the metal, a smell like blood, though it isn't, and you pull back. It's not that anything happened here, specifically. It's that everything that didn't happen has weight, too. A storm drain is a one-way throat. Secrets go down easier than they come up. You picture the boy's front tire bumping twice as he crossed. The way bumping twice can feel like a choice. Left, right, home, one more loop to delay dinner and homework and bedtime's political negotiations. Your phone lights your wrist, and you use it not as a shield but as a small lantern. You pan it along the curb and see the astroturf of lichen on the concrete, the constellation of ants doing something with purpose you will never learn, and the dead June bug flipped on its back like a tiny bronze bowl. You think of how certain fields, criminology, sociology, even folklore, argue about what towns like this do with absence. Is it better to memorialize or to normalize? To put a bench here with a plaque? Or to leave it a plain curb to let life slide over it until smooth? That's an academic quarrel with no scoreboard, and yet it changes where people sit and what they say or don't when they do. You rise and start walking again because motion feels like kindness. You pass the mailbox cluster, hummingbird quiet, and your fingertips drag along the aluminum. You notice a faded sticker from a decades-old election. You don't remember that candidate winning. You don't remember that candidate at all. But you smell envelope glue in memory, the way everyone licked hope and pressed it shut. There's a bend where the street gives up pretending to be a circle and admits it's a line. Here, the air smells like eucalyptus because someone planted a line of them back when people claimed it would keep mosquitoes away. That was the municipal wisdom of the mid-90 seconds. And who knows if it was true, but it gave the cul-de-sac a line of wind chimes. When the breeze slips through, the leaves clap softly, and you clap back in your head. 2 weeks before the boy vanished, a summer storm tore one of these trees in half, and the stump was left, smooth by idle hands, until it became a couch for waiting teenagers. On its top, someone carved a compass rose with a house key. West pointing is worn more than the rest, which feels like a joke for a place where the sun chooses to leave every evening. You test the stump with your palm. The wood is warm and slightly greasy with the oil of 100 hands. You sit and let the stump be your pew. Across the street, the porch light of a brick ranch goes off, then on again. A lighthouse with a confused keeper. Out here, cause and effect lose their formal handshake. A light goes on because a cat trips a sensor, because a moth chases its own paper moon, Because a homeowner keeps hoping the universe can be coaxed into giving up what it took. And then, because you came to listen, you hear it. A bicycle chain in need of oil. A thin little zipper of sound from 30 summers ago. It isn't there in the strict sense. It's in the neighborhood's muscle memory, a phantom limb ache. You breathe with it, in and out, and you let yourself think the unthinkable in a way that doesn't bruise. That maybe the sound passed under that crown on the street sign, rolled past this stump, trailed the eucalyptus applause, and trundled down toward the bowl, where the bullfrog has never once stopped insisting that the world is exactly the size of his voice. Here's the part you were saving for after midnight, when your breathing has matched the fan and the dark has gone velvet. The file didn't stay shut, it just rested. Somewhere in a climate-controlled room, a technician lifted a swab from an old handlebar, a heater vent, or a forgotten scrap of duct tape used for a school project who can say, "That bit doesn't belong to us tonight. What belongs is the shape of attention that keeps a town from looking away. The way you are looking, right now, at the place where asphalt becomes pond path. The way you think, you see a glimmer there, like an eye opening and closing, in water that pretends not to reflect anything at all. When you finally stand, your knees crack a little, and the night accepts it. You brush grit from your palms, and it feels like the borrowed time of a different day. You walk back up Honey Locust, with the crown watching and not watching, with the sprinklers tick-tick fading and your own thoughts ticking louder. The grocery's doors are locked now, and only the red closed-ed sign glows, as if the store is a heart in a chest it can't leave. You pass the bulletin board again, more tabs torn this time, and you promise the night, or yourself, that you will follow this path again tomorrow, and that you will listen not for answers, but for the tiny textures that prove the question still matters. Because it does. In a year when databases get smarter and towns get older and people keep rebuilding the same screen doors that never quite fit right, it matters that a bicycle's ghost can still move through a neighborhood without being chased away. It matters that the crown is still there, glinting. It matters that somewhere, a librarian of the unseen might cross-reference one more time and find that a name in one drawer wants to sit next to a name in another. You're not here to solve it. You're here to hold it, briefly and kindly, until the night takes it back and keeps it spinning. A coin you can almost see, balanced on its edge, refusing to fall. You come back the next evening because some places feel like they are breathing, and you promise to listen to their lungs. The grocery hums, the rec center is thudding with halftime basketball, and the air tastes like hose water and penny dust, summer's metallic afterthought. You carry the photocopy again, folded smaller now, like it wants to fit behind your watch band. Instead of turning toward the bowl, you follow the sidewalk past the library, where moths spar gently with the lamps. Inside, the circulation desk flickers with screensavers no one bothered to customize. The default shapes glide like sleepy fish. You know the reference librarian by sight, if not by name. And she knows you in the category of town fixtures, like the man who weeds the community garden at odd hours. Like the couple who walks the perimeter with earbuds and silent synchronized strides. She nods. You nod back and slip toward the microfilm corner because quiet technology always looks like a confession booth. The newspaper reels click and whir, and you scroll through headlines as if pulling a rosary made of dates. July, August. Then there was the week with the flyers. The week when the soda fountain tasted like guilt because you bought a grape Slurpee while the world was suddenly asking for seriousness. Names bloom in the small print. Neighbors, coaches, the principal with the tired tie, and polite-sounding investigators. You read the quote you already know by heart, the one about following every lead. You want to believe it isn't a script. People learn the way they learn to tie their shoes. Under the flicker of recorded ink, your finger pauses on a column inch about a neighborhood watch meeting. It mentions a detail you never caught. They moved the meeting from the church basement to the firehouse because the basement smelled like bleach after a flood. The article says, in that weirdly neutral tone small-town reporters adopt, that someone brought a tray of deviled eggs and no one touched them. This is how truth announces itself sometimes. In food that did not get eaten. You read it twice, as if there's some code in the paprika dusting. When the clock clicks toward closing, you leave the library with that microfilm smell on your hands. Plastic and warm dust. Outside, the night is a sheet someone breathed on, damp and barely moving. You walk past the City Hall annex, where the clerk's office still has its light on because paperwork, like grief, never gets a day off. You try the door, and it's open. Small towns sometimes let trust have keys. The clerk looks up. A woman with a blue cardigan, the color of a swimming pool you know by heart. She knows you too, in the way people know a certain kind of question just by the shadow it makes on a face. You ask for public records, the kind anyone can see if they know to ask. She tells you about boxes and forms and the patience required for living on paper. Then she leans in and lowers her voice, which is a kind of permission. Map cabinets, she says. Back wall, numbered by year. You thank her with a softness reserved for people who keep drawers of the past alphabetized. The map drawers slide with a whisper, and you lay a subdivision plan on the counter. Its crisp blue lines, precise enough that they seem almost comic compared to the real neighborhood outside, with its uneven grass and trash day exceptions. You trace the loop with your finger, a kind of secular prayer. You notice something small, an easement sketched behind the houses, an access strip between fences as thin as dental floss on the blueprint, a little secret lane where kids could dart and grown-ups could say, "Don't go back there." You remember hearing about shortcut paths like that, known by first names older than the cul-de-sac itself. The Spiders, the Cut, and the Goat Trail. This one says, utility right-of-way, in charming, tidy capitals, as if utilities have rights that people don't. Here's a fixed star to pocket. In 2018, a wave of cases across the United States began to unspool because investigators started using genetic genealogy, uploading crime scene DNA to open-source databases like GED Match to find relatives, building family trees backward, like lighthouses searching their beams across oceans of time. It's not science fiction. It's a whiteboard, a lot of coffee, women and men with laptops and patience, and a tolerance for surnames changing like rivers. It's also controversial on privacy grounds, the kind of development that makes lawmakers write op-eds and professors compose careful paragraphs that begin, "Scholars still argue whether public consent extends to relatives who never opted in." The clerk doesn't say any of that. She just watches you notice the easement and nods like she knew you would. You step back into the evening, the map ghosting your vision, and find the beginning of the right-of-way between two fences where the boards never quite met. You'd overlooked it your whole life because the honeysuckle claimed it like a shy room. You push through, and the smell pops sweet and green. An entire childhood crammed into a scent. Gravel crunches underfoot. A different sound than sidewalk. Here in the narrow run, backyards pour their secrets through knotholes. A wind chime shaped like a school of fish. A plastic flamingo with one leg missing. And a workbench lit by a single clamp lamp where someone is forever sanding something to fit someplace it doesn't yet belong. You move slowly, a film played at gentle speed, because the air is thick with quints and laundry steam. Above you, power lines bow slightly like they are tired of holding soundless conversations. You touch a fence post, and it gives your fingers a splinter that doesn't quite break skin. The warning is more idea than injury. Halfway down, you stop where the ground dips, and the weeds make a soft hiss with your knees. There's a soda can under a burdock leaf, crushed with a twist that suggests an impatient hand, sunset-era style. Oddly, the can is from a regional brand that went out of business in the early 2000s, the one with the retro rocket logo. You wouldn't have noticed it last night. Tonight it gleams like a misplaced punctuation mark. You nudge it with your shoe, and it rolls to reveal a faded sticker stuck to the underside. A tiny crown. The same silver. The same careful hand. Your chest does a small private drum. The crown on the street sign wasn't graffiti as a hobby. It was a breadcrumb. The kind that says, "I was here," or the kind that asks, "Are you watching?" Your phone's flashlight turns the sticker into a coin, and you think of those academic articles about offender behavior, how some insist signatures are theatrical, while others argue they're messages to the self. Guest books no one else is meant to sign. You aren't an academic. You are a person in a honeysuckle tunnel with a sticker that suddenly makes the darkness feel less empty and more occupiable. You keep moving, and the easement lets you out like a bouncer deciding you're fine. You step into a patch of grass behind the bowl's far edge where the ground feels soft, as if it remembers rain too well. Across the water, someone's porch, TV laughs, canned laughter into the night. A dragonfly skates the surface like a practiced lie. And then you see it, the iron post of an old utility marker half buried near the bank, its top cap varnished by years of weather into something like a nugget. On the cap, scored by something sharp, is a small crown again, this one cruder, the metal nicked to bright. You press your thumb to it, and the groove bites. The bullfrog announces his continued dominion. Your mind writes an arrow between the three crowns, like a constellator in a planetarium, hoping to turn stars into order. You sit on the damp slope and allow memory to visit you not as a narrative, but as a montage. A linoleum-floored kitchen with a calendar turned to September, with a red circle on the 21st because that was picture day. A handlebar squeak that could have been fixed with 3 drops of oil and someone's attention. The principal is letting students decorate the homecoming float with crepe paper despite the week's bad taste. The way the town kept its homecoming anyway, because that's what towns do, they insist on their routines as a kind of spell against the unsayable. Your phone buzzes with a message from a friend who, like you, keeps late hours and has softer kinds of courage. The text is a link to a local podcast episode, a microbatch show made by 2 teachers who solve crossword puzzles on air and occasionally read from police blotters. They've posted something new, a short cryptic note about long threads finally tugging. You listen with one ear and your eyes still on the water. They talk about the city's council approving funds to digitize years of boxed evidence because the basement keeps flooding, and because something's coming down the pipe. As one of them puts it, unaware of their choice of words about drains. You stand again, because sitting breeds the urge to stay, and you promised motion. You walk the perimeter of the pond slowly, counting your steps to make the dark less busy. The path feels like a ring someone lost, and the town keeps wearing it inadvertently. You find the storm drain outlet where a culvert exhales into the bowl with the faintest trickle, and nearby on the concrete lip are the blackened circles where someone once burned incense cones, tiny pyramids of ash. The smell is long gone, but you know dragon's blood when you see it. Your roommate in college swore by it during exam week. It's a strange detail to leave here. This ritual chair, where a kid on a bicycle might have coasted, where a person might have made a decision they then had to carry forever. Sound comes from behind you, a shoe on gravel, soft and hesitant. You don't turn right away, because nighttime courtesy says, don't startle strangers into thinking they've startled you. When you do, a man is there, older than you by 2 decades and younger by tiredness. He wears a reflective sash as if visibility can shine a hole through uncertainty. He raises a palm friendly, no sudden moves, and you return it. For a moment, you think he might ask if you're okay. Instead, he says, "You heard, right? About the box?" His voice sounds like a person who practiced in the car how not to sound rehearsed. You don't know what boxy means, but you nod anyway, social glue at work. He supplies the missing piece, like you were a crossword. They found a smear on the old flyer, he says, pointing vaguely, like the flyer is still there on the curb. Back of the tape. Like the tape had a memory. He tells you about the new lab equipment the county borrowed from the state for a week. A pop-up miracle van with a freezer that hums like a good dream, and a centrifuge that sings a high note you feel in your teeth. They ran it, he says, and it came back with a profile good enough to compare. The word compare hangs there because it implies another half, somewhere, waiting. He shifts like he wants to tell you more, but also wants to rescue himself from having said so. You thank him the way you thank strangers who give you directions out of the blue. He nods. Then, almost as an afterthought, he says, "Have you seen The Crowns? You play it cool." He laughs once, a tinny sound. "I always thought," he says, "it was a kid, but sometimes details are old, you know?" And that sentence does a quiet trick in your chest. It tilts the path and makes the night resemble a topology map where the lines suddenly bunch. Old details. An adult drawing small, careful crowns. The street sign. The can. The post. You both listen to the pond breathe. Then he goes, crunch, crunch down the gravel, and you are alone again, which is different now than it was 5 minutes ago. You take out your phone, and, for once, not to light the ground, but to dial a number you memorized, when memorizing numbers was still a thing, the non-emergency line. You tell the person who answers a dispatcher with a voice, like a winter scarf, that you're not making a report, not exactly, that you're moving through the old places and just noticed a pattern. You say the word crown once, and then you're careful not to say it again, as if speaking it too often would shatter it into confetti. The dispatcher thanks you, gives you a reference number that feels like a raffle ticket for a prize you don't want, and tells you to be safe out there. You hang up, and the night grows ears. Every leaf is suddenly aware of being a leaf. You measure your breath against the fan sound you imagine from your bedroom, a far-off metronome that keeps the song of your life on beat. You walk the rest of the loop, past the bench with the dedication plaque, because yes, they chose to memorialize in the end. A committee decided, and you do not read the name because names carry a weight you're not ready to lift in public. On the way home, you take the long route past the school where the flagpole rope clacks its little metal knot in the breeze. The marquee, eternally optimistic, lists a bake sale that already happened and a football game that was rescheduled twice because lightning is polite to no one. Near the gym doors, a shadow moves in a way that isn't wind, then resolves into a custodian, wheeling a bin of basketballs. Orange planets in a gray universe. He whistles something without melody, and for a second, you think you could ask him about the night in question, about sightings, about the janitorial wisdom of tiles and drains, and about what lingers after mop water dries. You don't, not yet. Back at your place, you sit on the stoop, because crossing thresholds can feel like admitting things. The concrete is warm from the day, and an ant finds your ankle with the industry of the entirely focused. You open your notes app and start a list you pretend is for a future you who will be grateful. It says crowns, easement, incense, ash, rocket soda, and old details. Below it, you type a question. Who needs a crown in a place with no throne? You almost delete it for being theatrical, but leave it, because sometimes the brain needs stage lights to rehearse certainty. The town is as quiet as it ever gets. The last train of the night plays its long, patient chord, and you feel that stupid, honest tear gather and then wait politely at the rim of your eye until it can choose a path. You let it. It cools your face in one stripe, and then it's gone. Salt forgotten by skin that always forgives. You think again of that fixed star, of 2018, and family trees drafted on whiteboards, of people in spare rooms drawing lines between second cousins and church directories, birth notices and obituaries, wedding registries, and Facebook posts with the comments turned off. It's a kind of archaeology that uses living clay. Some call it invasive. Some call it inevitable. You call it a net, and nets are judged by what they keep and by what they let go. You connect that to the right-of-way, to the fence knotholes, to the storm drain's one-way throat. Everything tonight is a version of a path. For water, for power lines, for rumors, for sorrow. Before you stand to go in, a truck idles at the stop sign 2 blocks away, the low diesel murmur of someone thinking in their lane. You don't know the person, and they don't know you, and still the night braids you together for a breath or two. The truck turns left, The sound recedes. Your fan inside the house counts down to sleep. And in your pocket, the reference number warms like a talisman that says, "Not solved, not yet, but moving." In the air, a distant siren curls and unrolls itself, as unhurried as a yawn. You close your eyes to hear it better, try to imagine which part of town it's threading, and a thought arrives that you don't push away. Maybe this time when they knock, the door will open. You don't plan to go back the next night, but your feet know what your brain won't admit. Stories don't stop at polite intervals. The air feels different, thinner, like someone whispered through it all day. You walk anyway. Down Locust Drive, past the shuttered rec center where a single fluorescent hums on for no reason. A light rain dots your sleeves, shy at first, then certain. Every drop smells like pennies and cedar. The night tastes metallic again, like it's remembering the past with you. You turn toward the bowl out of habit more than hope, and that's when you see it, the flash of red and blue reflecting off wet pavement. 2 cruisers parked crookedly, a third car idling with its headlights dimmed. You stay far enough away to be polite, but close enough to hear the murmur of radios. The officers stand in a loose triangle, their breath visible in the cool. One of them kneels near the storm drain, the same one you stared at nights ago. You know better than to move closer, but you do anyway, slow as a thought forming. There's something about scenes like this, the way they make sound feel like a physical thing, pushing against your ribs. You pick out fragments, old evidence, code is hit, call the captain. Words that sound like ghosts learning to speak. You stand by a mailbox, pretending to check your phone, though your pulse taps faster than any notification. A tech in gloves carries a small cooler toward the cruiser trunk. You know that cooler shape now. It's the same from every documentary, the kind that keeps answers cold until they're ready to thaw. A voice behind you startles. Crazy, right? It's the man with the reflective sash again, this time holding a leash with no dog attached. You glance down the leash to see it trail off empty into the mist. He laughs softly. "Old habits," he says, and you realize he's one of those night walkers who keep routines as anchors. They said the DNA matched someone in Florida, distant cousin, something like that. He shakes his head, rain pooling on his cap brim. The world's small when it wants to be. You nod, because you don't know what else to do with your mouth. The man lowers his voice. "They've got a name now. A guy used to work at the auto shop off Main. Left town in '99. He looks toward the pond, like he's reading headlines written on the water. They say he's still alive." You think about that, how life can just keep going parallel to grief. Unbothered, sunburned, buying coffee, mowing lawns. Here's your history for tonight. In 1980, the FBI created VICAP, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, a centralized database meant to link patterns across states. It sat half-forgotten for years, underused, until modern data crossovers breathed it back to life. It was meant to find meaning in repetition. You think about repetition now, the crowns, the stickers, the way grief loops like a scratched record until the right needle finds it again. The rain thickens, and the cruiser's lights smear into colored rivers on the street. You and the man watch without talking. Then he says quietly, "They always said he was the nice one." That sentence lands heavier than thunder. You want to ask who they are, but the answer is always the same. Neighbors, classmates, the communal they that towns summon when reality goes missing. The man tugs his leash as if signaling an invisible dog, nods once, and disappears into the dark. You're left alone with the siren colors and the smell of wet earth. One officer glances your way, expression neutral, and you take that as your cue to leave. As you walk, you notice the crown sticker still glinting on the street sign, though now the rain has made it weep silver down the pole. You think of kings without kingdoms, of signs that warn and bless at once. Your reflection follows in every puddle a moving double with its own questions. By the time you reach your porch, the town has gone back to its hum. The sound of tires on distant wet asphalt, The sigh of someone's dryer vent. You sit on the step and pull your hoodie tighter. Your phone buzzes again. This time, it's an alert from a local news site. Breaking. Arrest made in decades-old disappearance. The headline feels unreal, like someone else's punctuation at the end of your sentence. You scroll, eyes flicking over words that never fit comfortably with each other. Custody. Confession. Closure. Blun. Blun. Custody. Done. Blun. Custody. Confession. Custody. The article says nothing about crowns, nothing about honeysuckle tunnels, and nothing about the woman with the deviled eggs. Just data points and dates, crisp as ledger lines. You stare at the glow until the letters blur, and in that blur you remember the librarian's nod, the clerk's whisper, and the reflective man's leash with no dog. You realize everyone in this story has been holding a small piece of silence, passing it hand to hand until it became heavy enough to tip the scale. You look up, and across the street, a curtain flicks shut. Maybe they're reading too. Maybe they're finally exhaling. Somewhere, thunder folds itself into the clouds, and you feel the night settle again, like a book closing. You breathe through your nose. The air tastes of ozone and relief that doesn't know where to land. It's strange when an answer finally arrives. It's never as loud as the question was. The world doesn't cheer. It just adjusts. In the weeks that follow, you hear the rest in pieces. A podcast episode, a press conference, a line in the paper about extradition. The suspect, no, the man, keeps his eyes down as cameras flash. A neighbor says he once helped hang Christmas lights for the PTA fundraiser. Another swears he used to carve wooden crowns as gifts for kids at the fair. That detail chills you more than any headline. Crowns again. Maybe that's all it ever was. A symbol too large for one truth. At the grocery, you notice the bulletin board is clean for the first time in years, with no faded flyers and no curling tape. The empty cork looks strange. Naked. Like a wall without a memory. The clerk who bags your produce says quietly, "Guess they can rest now." You nod, unsure whether she means the family, the boy, or the town itself. Days pass. Autumn leans in. Kids ride bikes again, tires squealing on wet leaves. Laughter loud enough to cover history for a moment. You watch from your window, coffee in hand, and wonder how long until the next story starts. Somewhere else, under some other street lamp. You realize what the real unsolved mystery is. Not the crime, but how people keep living around the holes it leaves. One night, you drive out to the bowl one last time. The pond is still, the air clear, and the bullfrog finally quiet. The crown carved into the utility post is nearly washed clean. You stand there a long while, listening to the silence breathe. It feels almost kind. You whisper to the dark, not for answers, but for permission to stop asking. The dark, being generous, whispers nothing back. You turn to go. At the curb, a single firefly hovers one last pulse of light. It flickers once, twice, then vanishes into the ordinary night. You smile. Not because the story is over, but because it never truly will be. Memory, after all, is the quietest kind of sequel. Maybe someday we'll know the truth. But for now, sleep well.